Hey guys, this is Mark from Life Church, and I wanted to welcome you to our Patreon channel. I wanted to do a quick Bible study today per the request of a good friend of ours that I went on a missions trip to India with earlier this year. And we were on the bus, and one of the other ladies there was a counselor, and she was working with people who had suffered abuse and sexual abuse and all kinds of things. And so I went through this passage in Isaiah 53 that I feel like the Lord showed me some things on years ago. And you know, in this culture, with all of the abuse that goes on, we see in the news currently about people taking advantage of other people sexually. And when you start running into those kind of dark, horrific things, and you think, how will I ever be healed from that or recover from that? We find a lot of great comfort in the person of Jesus Christ. And Scripture reveals Jesus in so many ways, and this is something that I found really interesting, and so I wanted to just read out of Isaiah 53. I'm going to start in verse 3. It says, and this is a prophetic scripture about Jesus, "He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed." And I want to focus in on that word wounded, where it says he was wounded for our transgressions. So much of what Jesus came to show us is that not only could he take on the sins of the world, but as the world was killing him on the cross, he responded with, "Father, forgive them." And a lot of people don't realize maybe that Jesus had suffered so much leading up to the cross. But this scripture study and us doing this deep dive, I think will help us understand. The word there, wounded, in the Strong's Concordance, which is reference number 2490, is the Greek word, let's see, where is it? Chalal, which is spelled C-H-A-L-A-L, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but here's the definition out of Strong's, and this is in the back of my Hebrew Greek Key Study Bible that I've had for decades. And it's interesting, when I look this up now on like Bible Hub or whatnot, it doesn't go into this specific revelation, but I've got it here in writing if anybody wants to check it. But the definition is to profane, defile, pollute, to prostitute, to make common, to loose, to break. Now remember, this is referencing Jesus. He was wounded for our transgressions. In other words, these are things that were done to him. The core meaning of this root and its history in cognate languages is rather uncertain. Originally, the word was to refer to sexual defilement or incest. And what's interesting about that is, most people don't think in terms of Jesus as potentially experiencing incest. But here in the scripture, we see that the word that's applied to what happened to him in his life here on the earth could easily include that. And as bad as sexual, assault and all of that could be, it's hard to imagine it getting worse than your trusted relative that you're supposed to be able to trust in is actually defiling you in that way. And so I wanted to just say that in your pain, and we've got a big movement on the internet now of the Me Too girls that are saying, hey, I've been a victim of this, and so forth, that in the midst of that you understand that Christ has been exactly where you are and where you've been, and that he understands what you've gone through. And yet in the midst of that, there was that power of forgiveness. And the good news is that 2 Corinthians 5 talks about this mystical way, starting in verse 14, that all of humanity was included in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. So when Jesus rose up out of the grave, there's a sense in which all of humanity was mystically in union with him in his resurrection. And he goes on to say in that chapter, Paul says, "From now on we regard no man from a worldly point of view." In other words, if one died for all and therefore all died and we all took part in his death, burial, and resurrection, we're now in this new creation. And what's cool is the Greek word for new in that verse. One of the versions and translations of what new means there is unused. And so there's a sense in which, in the ultimate, most important sense, that your nature is unused. It's completely perfect. You know, God determined before time began that you would be holy and blameless. And you might say, well, you don't understand what I've been through. I've been through so much and all this horrible stuff. But if you can rest and trust by faith in the reality of you are now a brand new, unused, perfect, holy, undefiled you, that's the real nature of the gospel. That's really good news. And so I would just encourage all of you to do a deeper study into that. Spend time with Jesus and just ask him to unfold that more and more in your life. And hopefully that will bring some healing and some understanding and give you the ability to move forward in your life, the abundant life that Jesus came that you would have, as he stated in John 10, verse 10. So again, thank you to all the people who support our Patreon channel, and thanks for listening to this Bible study, and hopefully it's helpful to you guys, and share this with your friends and invite them to come be a part of our Patreon channel. All right, thanks. Bye.